Hello, everyone. Welcome to the induction cooking class today. If you guys don't know, we're using induction technology to cook, and this uses electricity. It's a lot more efficient than a gas or a coil stove. There's no residual heat. It uses magnetism and eddy currents to heat the pan directly. That's why the surface doesn't get hot. And then it reduces the indoor air pollution from the methane, and it's a lot easier to control the temperature when you're cooking on induction. And then this program is sponsored by East Bay Community Energy. They serve the Alameda County. They buy clean power and they deliver it through the PG&E power lines to your guys' home. And if you guys live in the East Bay and you guys wanted to try out induction cooking for yourself, here is a kit that you guys can rent for a whole month. You guys just go to ebce.org/induction cooking applied to rent yours out. And without further ado, I'll pass it to the Chef Kelvin and I'll put the recipe in the chat.
Thank you, Irving. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's fine today. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making a couple of recipes. Every time around this time of year, I think about summer. Even though we're still in the spring, I always think about summer. So what I wanted to share with you guys today is a nice summer recipe that we can make along with any time of the summer. I'm always looking for a nice little refreshing beverage. So today we're going to be making chipotle portobello mushroom tacos with a vegan cilantro crema. And then we're going to finish that off with a watermelon cucumber mojito. All right. I mean, what's that summer like a mojito? All right. So let's get started, shall we? All right. So first things first, you guys, what I like to do is I always like to get things done that, things that need to sit for a while. Okay. So we're going to start off with with our pickled onions, okay? So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna get our pickled onions going. So what we're gonna need for this dish, for this part, is we're gonna need about a cup of water. Now, I want you to think about when you're pickling onions, think about pickling onions as you wanna make sure that whatever liquid you're gonna be using, which is usually vinegar and water, and you can throw some spices in there. You can throw some peppercorns and things like that, But whatever you're going to put in your onions in, you want to make sure you have enough liquid to cover up your onions. So I have a nice small, because this is, just for tacos. I have a nice small glass here that I'm going to be using. And so one of these just need enough for that. So what I like to do is I like to go ahead and use that first to put enough water in. And then also for this recipe, you're also going to need some apple cider vinegar. Okay, if you do not have apple cider vinegar, that's totally fine. You can also use regular vinegar as well, but I prefer apple cider vinegar. And so you want to do about, I would say half amount of the water, like 1.5. So if you're going to use like a cup of water, then you do about a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar or any type of vinegar. And just want to bring that to a boil, okay? Then from there, we're going to need to start getting ready, get our onions ready. So I'm going to move this to the side and let that come to a boil. And the thing about induction burners, what I love is I can just go ahead and blast that up and bring it to a hard boil because it heats up really, really fast. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut up about half of red onion because I know that with my container here, that's all I can fit in here. So with this one, usually when I'm cutting the onion up, I usually like to cut one side off and I leave the other side on, but that's only when I'm dicing. But when I am slicing up an onion to be pickled, I cut both ends off because it makes it a lot easier and also makes it a lot easier to peel that skin off. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that first. Make sure you get all that off. And sometimes I go another extra layer just to make sure, because sometimes it makes it a little hard to get all that off. And sometimes they're a little discolored and I don't want to use that, okay? I want to get the good part. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and slice that up as thin as possible. If you have a hard time doing it with a knife, then you can also use a mandolin to really get some really thin slices. But it don't have to be super, super like paper thin, where you can see through it, but just thin enough to where, you can actually throw them into our glass and they can just cover up, but also they'll cook down. because that's what the process is. It's going to cook them all down. If you have a little bit extra left over, then you can also use that to, you know, just grill that up. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. I don't like to fill up too much because I want to make sure that I have enough space for my water or my liquid to cover that up. Okay. And as you can see already right now, they're already starting to boil over, which is great. That's what I'm looking for. That water is already starting to boil over. And that's all you need. Once it starts coming to a rolling boil, that's all you need to do. And then you want to go ahead and just throw that in there like so. And then you're set, okay? Now, don't cover this up. Just make sure they're all in there. And then from there, you want to go ahead and toss that into the refrigerator, okay? And let that pickle on up. It'll pickle up over time. That's how easy it is to pickle onions, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right. Next up, we need to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to start prepping. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start prepping the rest of our ingredients, okay? So from there, let's move on to our main ingredients. So from there, we're going to need to do is we're going to start slicing our portobellos. Now, if you've ever worked with portobellos before, you also know that underneath the portobello, you have that little flesh underneath that you have to be careful with. So, and you have to scrape all the insides out. All right. Now, I found that using a spoon really works really, really well. So I got yourself a spoon. I do have a little garden outside, so I keep all the little trimmings and everything that I don't need. And I go ahead and put them in a bowl because I can use that for compost. Then you want to take the stems off here and then go ahead with your spoon and just give it a nice little scrape. Get all that out of there, okay? So that really affects the flavor, and it's not really, I mean, it is edible, but it does nothing for the flavor. So go ahead and get as much of it off as possible. Be very, very gentle with it because portobellos can be very, 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 very delicate, okay? So try to get as much as you can off. And then we're just gonna go ahead and slice these up. Perfect, that's one. And then we're gonna go ahead and do the next one. Also, you guys, I'm gonna give you guys a heads up. This is a very interactive class. So if you guys have any questions, don't feel shy. I am not shy at all. So you can either put them in the chat. I'll try my best to see if you have any questions or any comments. And also in my class too, I like to share, always like to share tips of the trade when it comes to cooking. So always kind of see if you can pay attention. If you have any questions about anything, do not hesitate to ask, okay? All right, now we got that out the way. Now let's on to our next ingredient. What we're gonna need also too for this is gonna need a red bell pepper. So you're gonna go ahead and slice that up as well. Now for the red bell pepper, you always notice that we always have that little white pit too. I don't like the waste. I don't like the waste at all either. So I try to get as much of that flesh as possible. But I also too, when I'm working with bell peppers, is I like to make sure that bell pepper is really nice and sweet, So what I like to do is take that pit off because sometimes that can be very, very bitter. So as you can see, I just press down on the bell pepper and just slide it across and get down to that really, really that nice flesh there. So we'll go ahead and do the rest of them. And then we're going to go ahead and slice those up as well. And I try to keep it as uniform as possible, but it doesn't have to be perfect, you guys. All right, so we're going to start off with that, and we're going to go ahead and do some nice inch slices here because I want to make sure that if I'm going to be adding different ingredients to my tacos, I want to make sure that one doesn't overpower the other, when it comes to the flavor. I want them to blend perfectly with each other. I want them to complement each other. Anytime you're adding anything to a dish, you want to make sure that they're complementing each other. Almost done there. So with the mushrooms, I'm going to do like a little bit thicker than what I have for the bell peppers. And the reason being is the mushroom is going to be a substitute kind of like for our protein. And usually with mushrooms, they want to make sure they have like that nice little meaty texture. Okay, so I don't want them too thin. but I want enough to have a nice little bite. So what I'm gonna do before I do that is I'm gonna go ahead and add that to my bowl here, because we're gonna be adding a nice little marinade to that, okay? So as you can see, I have my bell pepper this size. I'm gonna have my mushrooms about that size, okay? Go ahead and add that all to your bowl as well too. All right. Last but not least, we're gonna have our yellow onions. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my yellow onion, and what I'm gonna do about half of a yellow onion as well too. And I'm gonna do is with this one, I'm gonna cut it in maybe like half moons. Because I want to be able to have that same size. I was trying to say the same size as I have as my bell peppers. Because I want them to kind of cook evenly. All right, so we're gonna do half moons here. The same size as my bell pepper. And then go ahead. And usually what I like to do is I like to break these things up a little bit, give them a little help, you know. I don't like to keep them as full as whole half moons. I want to keep them just like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that in. All right, perfect. Now we have all of our ingredients that we need for our tacos. And then always, I want to make sure that I have a nice clean surface. So I always like to clean as I go. Next, we're going to be working with is our marinade. So for our marinade, we're going to need some chipotle peppers and adobe sauce. Now we're not going to use the peppers, we're just going to use the sauce for this, okay? So we're going to need that, and then we're also going to need about 1/4 teaspoon of coriander and 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do is I like to always make sure that I don't use the peppers in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab myself a bowl. I'm going to add my cumin, my coriander inside of there, and then I'm going to go ahead and find myself a nice fine mesh and get that chipotle in there. Now, if you're a big fan of chipotle, then go ahead and add a little extra more in there if you want to. Just be careful because sometimes it can be a little bit spicy, okay? But also what you want to do is kind of pay attention to how much of the you want to kind of pay attention to how much of the how much veggies you're using, because you want to make sure that you want to make sure that everything is covered up. So what I could do is I'm going to go ahead and add all that in there. I'm just going to give that a nice little smash down just so I can get all of that sauce in there as much as possible, where I'm just left with the chipotle. So I'm going to give myself a little hand here and add that back to the can. And if you want a little bit more spice, then go ahead and blend that up and add that to there as well. Okay. Beautiful. You skip that bottom because there's always going to be some at the bottom too. You know, one thing I always learned as far as working in the kitchens is you do not waste. So I do not like to waste. So I'm going to go ahead and mix those all up together beautifully, like so. Get all those flavors together. You can smell it too. I love it. And then I'm going to go ahead and add that into my veggies. Try to get as much of that sauce as possible. Again, team no waste. We're going to mix that in and then let that sit. All right. I always like to have myself a nice little pair of gloves handy, so I can go ahead and mix that in. But if you're really good at this, you can also just kind of if you don't have gloves handy, just go ahead and grab yourself a spatula, and just mix that in. But I want to make sure that everything is all nice and rubbed in. So that's what I'm going to use these gloves for, is to make sure that everything is all combined. Again, be very, very gentle because you have those mushrooms in there, but you want to make sure that we get all that combined in there, okay? This little buddy here, don't want to lose you. Put you back with your brothers and sisters. All right. Oh, you can already smell that smokiness already from the chipotle. I love it. All right. That sounds good. Now let's cook, shall we? I'm gonna put that to the side for right now. And then I'm gonna go ahead and get my pan nice and hot. So I'm gonna go ahead, turn the heat on. That's good, nice and hot. I'm gonna put about a tablespoon of, you can use vegetable oil, you can use canola oil. I like to use canola oil sometimes, but sometimes I like to use vegetable oil as well too. So I'm gonna do like a nice amount of vegetable oil in there, and then let that get nice and hot. Now, I always want to emphasize how hot you want your pan when you're sauteing something, because sometimes when you're sauteing things get sticky, okay? And so I want to make sure your pan doesn't stick. The only way you can make sure your pan really doesn't stick is when that skillet is really nice and hot. And how you can tell when it's nice and hot is you have a few indications. Number one is you can look at your pot, and then when you add that oil in there, if that oil starts to move around real smoothly and real fast, then you know it's hot. But also too, use that sense of sight, okay? That sense of sight is very, very important as well too. You can tell when you see a little bit of smoke coming up, not engulfing smoke, but a nice little bit of smoke coming up from that pan. That's when you know that pan is ready to go, okay? That's when you know you're ready to saute. And also too, that sense of hearing. So when I add anything to a pan, I always want to make sure I hear that sizzle. It's kind of like, you know, I always think about rice. I don't know why. I just remember the commercial, and you add that milk in there and it starts popping. Okay, so I don't know why I put them two together, but you know, that's the things I think about. Also, make sure you have some salt handy because you're definitely going to want to season it. Now, thing about salt is you want to make sure that you don't use too much salt. Okay, always add a little bit at a time because salt is only used to enhance the flavor of everything else that you use. So that chipotle, that coriander, that cumin, that salt is only there to enhance those flavors. Okay, that's it. That's all. So I'm gonna go ahead and move this around. We're almost there, not yet. And that's one thing I love about induction burners too, is that I can go ahead and I can turn this up high, get it nice and hot. And this is very easy to control the heat on these things. I love cooking with this. I do meal prep every week, and it comes in handy every single time. I'd rather use this than my stove. All right. Also, another little tip. Always make sure too, you do not overcrowd your pan, okay? For this dish right here, we're gonna start off with our mushrooms first, okay? We're gonna start off with our mushrooms first, then we're gonna follow up with our bell peppers and our onions, okay? That's why I'm glad that we chopped up our mushrooms a little bit bigger than our onions and our bell peppers, because it's gonna be easy, even though we mix everything together, it's gonna be easy to find those mushrooms in there and take them out and put them in our pan, all right? So when I see that, so going back to seeing how our pan is ready to go, you want to see that smoke, I'll take a little look down and see how we're looking. Okay, we're not there yet, but we do have that smoothness, oil moving around real easily, which is great. And then we're just gonna wait for a little bit of smoke, then we're gonna add those in. That really helps, especially with stainless steel pans, is because sometimes a lot of people use Teflon, non-stick pans, but with these things, also with cast iron, you want to make sure that you see a little bit of that heat in there. That prevents things from sticking, because that can be so annoying sometimes. All right, let's see how we're looking there. All right, let's see what we're looking. Hear that? That's what we're looking for. That sizzle. Now we want to cook these off till they brown up. Once they start browning up, then we can start adding the other ones. Okay, the other ingredients. Now, also to make sure that we don't overcrowd our pan, especially with mushrooms. Mushrooms, they contain a lot of liquid, okay? And also, so one thing we want to do is we want to brown them up. If we add too many mushrooms in here at one time, you have a whole big old pot, a big old bowl of mushrooms, and you want them all in at one time, that's all you're gonna do is you're gonna really start just releasing a lot of that liquid, and then you end up, instead of sauteing, you end up braising, okay? So that's what we don't want, okay? All right, we're gonna let that go. And they're gonna add a little bit of salt, okay? Because that little bit of salt, it really helps get all that liquid out of there. But we're gonna let them sit, you know? We're gonna let them sit first, and then from there, then we're gonna start tossing them over. While that's going, let's start thinking about what we're gonna do for our crema. All right, so for our crema, we're gonna need some, oh, that's kind of spicy. I smell that chipotle already. All right, for that crema, we're gonna need about 12-ounce package of silken tofu. I have my tofu here ready to go. We're also gonna need about a tablespoon of olive oil, about 1 to 2 tablespoons of lime juice, 1 garlic clove, and about a half a bunch of cilantro, and half of a jalapeno slice. Okay, but we're gonna be actually adding that into a blender, but we're gonna be doing all the other stuff later on. And that's going to be the cilantro and the jalapeno we're going to add later on. If you like a little heat, I'll tell you what to do if you add a little heat to that crema. All right, let's see how we do it. See how that comes up, and that's nice and browned up, and it comes up real easily. That's because that pan was hot. Okay, now what we can do is turn down a little bit because we don't want it to burn, but we just want it to brown up, okay? So you go ahead and toss those over. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, I love it. One thing about this too, it clears the sinus. All that heat and everything is really good for clearing the sinus. So you have a sinus problems right now, you know, the summer's coming around the corner, spring's around, you have sinus issues. Go ahead, make some of these tacos and clear right on up. All right. Okay. So we're gonna let these go for about another minute or so, and then we're gonna go ahead. And what I like to do, honestly, is I'm gonna put these to the side, and then I'm gonna add my other veggies because I don't want these to overcook. I want them to have that meaty texture. So sometimes you'll see a recipe and I tell you just add everything else in there. No, you know, if you like the mushrooms and have like a meaty texture, you know, especially with tacos and things like that, then go ahead, take those mushrooms out, put them to the side, and then go ahead and saute the rest of your veggies. Then we can throw them in later on, okay? So I want to stay prepared. Got my little bowl, got my plate over here. Let's see here. Those look good. Those look good. Looks good. Now go ahead and take that out. Now for this, I'm going to add a little bit more oil, not too much, just a little bit, just to get that nice little saute. And don't worry about that darkness all inside here. That's all that flavor and everything, okay? So we want to keep that. I'm going to add a little bit more oil here. Just help out with that saute, got that smoke. And there we go. All right. Beautiful. Keep our bulbs, and we're going to add everything back in there. And then the same thing we did with our mushrooms, we're going to do the same thing for our bell peppers and our onions, okay? And this one we're going to go ahead, this one I don't have to worry about leaving in there to cook off, okay? I can go ahead, we can kind of like move these around a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit. And then again, add a little bit of salt, not a lot, just a little bit. The thing about salt, you guys already know, you add too much salt in there, can't take it back out, okay? And then everything is too salty and it just ruins the flavor, okay? So we don't want to do that. Once we get this all done, then we're gonna go to our crema, and then we're gonna get to the main event, which are those mojitos, okay? Now, sometimes what I like to do too, you see all that flavor at the bottom and everything too. that's one thing I like to do is I like to let that kind of like grill a little bit, like saute a little bit. Then I like to deglaze it. Okay, so what I'm going to deglaze with that, I'm going to add a little bit of water in there to get all that flavoring out, all that flavor from the bottom of the pan up. Okay. So as that's cooking up, because I am a multitasker, okay? I've learned to multitask over time. Whereas if I know that one thing is cooking and it's cooking, I don't like to just sit there and just watch it. It's kind of like watching water boil. You know, that's the number one rule. Don't just sit there and watch the water boil because wait for the water to boil because it'll never boil. So I feel like the same way when it comes to cooking is I like to let things that I know is going to be cooking for a while. I like to let it go and then start working on something else. So let's start getting together everything that we need for our crema. All right, so we have our blender here. I'm gonna go ahead and add that tofu in. So we're gonna need our tofu first. Go ahead, add that in. Also, too, if you're looking for a great dessert, just soaking tofu is really, really good for a nice mousse. I did a class before, welcome chocolate mousse, and I tell you, it is just like if you went to a restaurant and they made a regular mousse. That silken mousse, chocolate mousse, is to die for. And all it calls for is this and some chocolate melted down and added in there. Swear to it. All right, so we're also gonna need a garlic. So go ahead, throw your garlic in there. Okay. Then we're also gonna need about 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, lime juice. So I'm gonna use about maybe 2 limes for this, just to get things rolling. As things are rolling, I'm gonna go ahead and still check on. Make sure you're checking on your bell peppers and your onions. So go ahead, add that in there. Again, we're gonna need that olive oil. And I want to make sure too that my garlic gets all mixed in as well too. So I'm gonna go ahead and just move that around a little bit more. Also too, grab yourself a spatula because with the spatula, you want to make sure that everything gets incorporated. All right. Now I found a little trick too when it comes to squeezing lemons or lime juice is sometimes you just squeeze anything you're done. But I like to do is I like to add 2 in there after I squeeze 1. I have to go back in here again. So I add 1 in and then I throw the other one in that I just squeezed up. And I squeeze a little bit more just to give me a little bit more depth. All right. All right. Let's take this little pause right here. Let's bring this back because it's a little giddy glaze, okay? So I'm gonna add in a little bit more water in there. We're gonna deglaze to get all those chunks and all that chipotle flavoring up in there. Okay, and then I'm still gonna let that cook because I want that onion to cook down. Okay, I don't want that onion to be all nice and crunchy and everything. I want that to be cooked down and nice and soft. It's nothing. It's so to the point to where it's almost like a caramelized or grilled onion. Okay. All right. Next, we're gonna need for this is we have our lime, we have our garlic in here. We're gonna need a little bit of olive oil. Okay. So we're gonna for this one you need about a tablespoon of olive oil. Perfect. And then from there, we all have everything ready to go. We also have about a bunch of cilantro that we're gonna need for later on. And then we're also gonna need about half of a jalapeno. Now, again, dealing with jalapenos, you guys all know jalapenos can be hot, so I always like to use a glove for my jalapeno because later on in life, you know, sometimes I might get an itch in the eye. You don't want to sit there and be rubbing your eyes and everything, and you end up having some jalapeno on your hand. It's not a good thing. So get my half a jalapeno. And what I'm going to do is, depending on how much heat you like, Now, depending on how much heat you like, if you like a lot of heat, then just get the seeds out, leave that pit. If you just want like a nice little kick, then take that pit out, okay? So this part right here, you want to take that out. That's where a lot of that heat lives at, and that part right there, okay? A lot of people think it's also like it's the seeds, but it's that pit. So if you don't want too much heat, then go ahead and just get that out of there, all right? I'm just gonna go ahead and put that to the side. So I'm gonna go ahead and chop that up into nice little small little dices, and then add that to my cilantro because they're all gonna go together at the same time anyway. Doesn't have to be uniform or anything like that. You know, just go ahead and chop that up because you just want to give it a nice little help when you add this to the rest of our crema. Dump that over to our compost. All right. All right, move that to the side. Let's check in on our onion and our bell pepper. As you can see, it's starting to soften up a little bit more, which is great. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the mushrooms back in. Okay. So go ahead and add those back in. We want to get a little bit of that moisture in as well too. Again, being very, very gentle. And a good thing too about a good practice is to also taste your food, you guys. Okay, so you don't have to wait till it's over, so everything's all done. Taste your food. Taste it while it's cooking right now, because if you may need a little bit more salt to it, maybe you don't. But the only way to find out is if you taste it, right? Okay. Right, so I'm just gonna take a little bit out real quick. We'll find a small little piece to see where our flavor is at. Of course, I'm gonna let that cool down. Do not just throw that in your mouth, guys, okay? It's not the same thing to do. Because then there goes your taste buds. Perfect. That's beautiful. Yes. Oh my God. Okay. So we're there, right? Now, also keep in mind too, you know, is that when you're cooking things, also realize too that sometimes I like to stop, depending on what you like. Sometimes I like a little crunch in my food and everything too. So sometimes if I like a little crunch in my veggies, I stop cooking it after a certain point in time, because you also realize too that there's a lot of heat into your veggies or whatever you're making, and it's going to continue to cook. Okay, unless you're doing like unless you're doing the ice bath and you're cooling down really fast. But if you're not doing that, then you just stop cooking it, and then from there, once you stop cooking it, then what you can do is just let it set, and it'll cook a little bit more until we get to the right consistency that you want. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna add that back to our bowl, like so. I'm gonna move this to the side because we don't need this anymore. All right. All right, now that that's done, let's get finished with our crema, okay, shall we? Again, as I mentioned before, a clean station is a happy chef. So if you cook a lot, I know I cook a lot, and the one thing that I hate about cooking, even though I love cooking, is I hate to clean up. Okay, so if you clean as you go, then later on you don't have to worry about cleaning up unless you have somebody that's helping you, and then you can have if you're cooking, and you have if you're whether it's your husband or your kids, then you can get them to cook. But if it's usually by yourself, then clean as you go. It makes things a lot easier. All right, now we got that done. Let's get to blending, shall we? All right. So go ahead. We're gonna plug that in. And we're gonna go ahead and blend that up, okay? So it starts getting nice and smooth. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you definitely want to make sure that you have a spatula because sometimes that stuff gets stuck on the side. You want to make sure everything gets blended in evenly, okay? I'm going to move this a little bit further so you guys can see, because obviously you can't see from right here. All right, there we are. I'm going to get myself a spatula. The other reason why I'm going to use a spatula as well, so you can see some of that olive oil mixing on the side. So I like to give it a nice little mix, okay? And then from there, what I'm gonna do is give it one more little last blend, and then I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of our ingredients. Now, usually when you're blending something, you guys, one thing you want to make sure you do, because sometimes you can get a little discouraged, like it's not blended, it's too thick. Just let it go for a minute. Then you'll start seeing it start to spiral in, okay? You start seeing it blend it up. All right, now that we got that done, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna press down in there all my cilantro and my jalapeno, okay? And then I'm gonna give it a nice blend, and then just gonna blend till it gets to the consistency that you like, okay? Okay, now let's give it a nice little mix. As you can see, it went from that nice creamy whiteness of our silken tofu, and now we got that nice green goddess color, okay? Now, again, I cannot say it's enough. Taste your food, guys, okay? Taste your food. So I'm gonna do is gonna give it a nice little taste, because this is where we're gonna add a little bit of salt. Right now, I can taste that cilantro, I can taste the lime, Now I'm gonna add, and there's a nice little kick of that jalapeno. I'm glad I did not put that pit in there because it probably would have been overpowering, but I get a nice little kick, and that's what I want, okay? So I'm gonna add that in, I'm gonna add a little bit more, add a little salt and everything to enhance the flavors that we already started off with. Then from here, I'm just gonna pulse. All right, we'll give it one more little taste to see how we're looking. Maybe a little bit more salt, just a little bit. All right, then there, and then you finish that off. All right, beautiful. If you have yourself like a nice little bottle to put it in or a mason jar, go ahead and do that. If you don't, just put it in the cup or a glass, you should be fine. Okay, so let's do that. Again, from there, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get to our main event. So I just happen to have a nice little bottle here, a squirt bottle that I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in. Beautiful. I have a little extra left over. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw that into another small little mason jar and save that for later. But I'm gonna use this for right now because I wanna need that for my tacos, okay? So move that to the side. We're gonna use that blender in a second again anyway for the rest of our stuff. All right, now we're back. Again, we got a little splatter here, that's totally fine. There's not that much. And we're gonna go ahead and clean that off because now let's get together our ingredients that we need for our mojito. Okay. Now, For our mojito, we're gonna need about half of a seedless watermelon. Okay. We're also gonna need half of a English cucumber. If you don't have English cucumber, that's fine. You can use regular cucumber as well. We're gonna need about 3 limes here. We're gonna also need some mint, and then also we're gonna need a little bit our sparkling water here. I like bubbly. I drink these throughout the day anyway, so I have some handy. So I'm like, I'm just gonna go ahead and use that. I'm gonna add a little flavor to there. Go find another flavor, and then from there, the main ingredient is Bacardi. I like to use light Bacardi for this recipe. Okay, for this cocktail. So that's what we're gonna work with there. And then also too, you know, for mojito, because obviously sometimes it depends on your watermelon. If it's not really in season or if it's not sweet enough, I like to give it like a little kick. So I like to use some agave. All right, so I got that blue agave here, and let's get rolling on that. All right, so now that we got these all going, I'm gonna move this to the side here. I'm gonna go ahead and put my crema in the refrigerator, just let it cool down a little bit. Okay. Okay. All right, so let's move that to the side. We move all these ingredients to the side. It's like we have like a nice little bar here. Okay, the bartender. And then from there, we're gonna do is first thing first we want to do is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna blend up our watermelon. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and toss that watermelon in. And then as this blends up, then later on, then after that, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add in my cucumber as we go. Okay. Now, mind you, there's gonna be some pulp going on in here, so we're gonna make sure we get that pulp out. All right. So make sure it's nice and covered up. Sometimes you might need to give a nice little hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and just push that down. There we go. Now we got all that liquid in there. Now we're gonna go ahead and add our cucumber. Because why do one at a time? Throw them all in, okay, at the same time, because we're gonna do some pulp from that cucumber as well as that watermelon. So let's go ahead, add them all in together, and then we can strain this out, okay, in a fine mesh strainer. That's all it takes, okay? Now we got that done. Let's move this over to the side. We don't need you anymore, okay? Being that we have a lot of melon right now, I'm going to use a little bigger bowl. I'm going to use a larger mesh strainer here, just so I can catch all that here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour that right on in. And you can see all that juice already started to come out of there. Okay, beautiful. Let's go. I'm a fan, sir. All right, now we want to make sure we get all of that out of there, all that pulp, okay? So give myself a nice clean spatula. I'm just gonna give it a nice little twirl around, like so. You can see all that juice coming out of there, okay? Beautiful. And you guess what? You can guess where this is going. Yeah, this is going straight into my compost because that's where it should go. But I like to make sure I get as much of that liquid out of there as possible. So I give it a nice press. I get my strainer just to make sure I get all that liquid out of there. Okay. No waste. Team no waste, you guys. Okay, let's see, we got majority of it out of there, but you know, sometimes I have a little bit OCD, so I gotta get a little bit out of it. I gotta get everything, okay? The restaurant industry did it to me. Don't blame me. No, seriously, my chef used to always charge us. Every single time we do a little, we see he finds any ways, he would charge us, okay? Whether he took it, he would make sure we give, if we had $1 in our pocket, he would make sure we put $1 in the pot, you know? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get all that out there. Again, just like we did Chipotle, I'm gonna get the bottom of it, but I don't wanna waste anything. But look at that, beautiful juice, okay? Now, for that juice, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna toss that into the refrigerator, okay, to get that nice and cool. Nice and cool, all right? If you have a pitcher, go ahead and get your pitcher and throw that in there. I'm gonna go ahead and use this. Because it's handy. Look at that. Perfect. Oh, yeah, right there. Beautiful. All right, so go ahead and toss that in the refrigerator, get it nice and cold. If you're in a hurry, throw it in the freezer. All right, so next what we're gonna do, you guys, is we have all of our juice ready to go. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start getting the rest of our stuff going. So first things first. Yes. Okay, our shaker. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna juice our limes right into there. So got my limes here. Go ahead and give it a nice little squeeze in there. Okay. And just like I did before earlier, I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna go ahead and juice these limes first. And then whatever I have in there, I'm gonna go ahead and toss that last one in there, just get that extra little lime juice out. Okay, it's a great forearm workout too. Also too, you guys, sometimes you may go to the grocery store and you may get like some limes that are really, really hard, you know, and you just can't get any juice out there. So sometimes what I suggest you guys do before, you know, you go ahead and cut those limes open is you kind of only want to juice them yourself, okay? And what I mean by that is you take yourself a nice little lime like so, you know, and you put it down on your cutting board and just give it a nice little roll to get all those juices broken up in here, okay? That's what we're looking for, all right? So we're gonna do that. All right, from there, so we have that ready to go. Then from there, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take some of our mint, so we're gonna go ahead and muddle some of that mint in there, okay? Now you can use a wooden spoon for that. Because this is so big, I'm gonna use a wooden spoon for that, okay? But before I do that, what I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of agave in there too. I'll say that's probably like about 2 tablespoons of agave in there. I think mine's a little bit sweet, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna press it down in there, okay? I'm gonna press it down in there. Be careful because it will splash up, even though it's down low, it will splash up. So what I like to do is I can press it to the side, like so, and then get all that oil in there. You know, all the oils that's on the and that mint that you can get out of there by just pressing it against it, okay? All those essential oils. Gonna give it a nice little muddle like so too. This will kind of like break some of that up a little bit. So totally fine. All right. Oh wow. Okay. So hold on. We say we can pickle the rinds too. Okay. I like that. I like that. All right. So I gotta learn more about that. See, even though I've been in the industry for so long, there's a lot of things that I can still learn. All right. So now I got my lime juice in here. I got my mint in here. I'm mulling it. Now I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add some ice in here. I'm gonna add that mixture in there again, that watermelon mixture and the cucumber mixture in here. I'm just gonna add some ice in here. I'm gonna shake it for about 15 to 20 seconds and then strain and then strain that, okay? So before I do that, because I'm gonna go ahead and add my ice first, because I don't want things to splash around. All right, from there, what I'm gonna do is go ahead, add some of that mixture in here, like so. All right. Then from there, we're gonna give it a nice little shake, okay? Now, I will tell you this. So I'm using just regular, I'm using peppermint for this one. Now, I feel like I do have I just moved into this place, and I feel like there's a little bit of spearmint somewhere in my garden, but I got this from the store, which is regular mint. But you can use spearmint as well too. Now, one thing I learned about doing this right here is, when you're shaking something like for the cocktail and everything, you gotta really give it like a vigorous shake. Okay, I tried making some, what was it, some espresso martini, and I just could not get it right until I went to a bar. I'm like, why does yours look so much better than mine? Because you gotta shake it up, you guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it a nice little shake. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a nice little shake. All right. My lady, she does not like Taylor Swift, so I'm not gonna use the shake it up song, okay? I'm gonna do that. So give it a nice little shake. Nice. Shake it up. You won't hear me. Shake it up. Shake. She won't hear me at all. All right. Beautiful. All right, that looks good. And then from there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of ice to my glass. Again, I'm getting a little fancy here today, okay? So I'm gonna do I'm getting a little bit fancy here. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna strain that in, okay? So go ahead and just toss that in like so. I like a little bit of mint in there. And then, so let's start off with that one first. And then from there, I wanna go ahead and add about 2 ounces or more of some Bacardi. And then we're just gonna top it off with my sparkling water, okay? And then I'm gonna let that sit, I'm gonna put that to the side right now, but this looks really good. I'm ready for this. All right, let's get back to our tacos, shall we? Finish it off, We got a little bit more time left, let's get to our tacos. All right, so now we got that done, right? Now let's go back to our tacos. The last thing we need for our tacos, you guys, is our tortillas, right? And then also, we almost forgot, we still have our pickled onions in there, right? So let's go ahead and we'll get that nice and heated up right now. I'm gonna put this to the side. Now, depending on how you like your tacos, okay? Some people may like their tacos, their tortillas a little bit crispy, some like them soft. It's up to your preference. If you like them soft, just go ahead and just don't throw no oil in there. It'll be fine. But if you like them a little bit crispy, go ahead and toss a little bit of oil. I like mine a little bit crispy, so I'm gonna toss a little bit of that oil in there real quick. Not too much, just a little bit. And for this one, you don't have to wait till it gets super hot, okay? You don't have to worry about that. I'm really a fan of yellow corn tacos. So I'm gonna let that heat up a little bit. Got my corn tacos here. And then also too, I got my taco mixture. All mixed nice stuff together. Beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and have another little taste because beautiful. And then also too, one thing I'm really a big fan of too is when I'm making tacos, I love cilantro, you guys. Okay, I love cilantro. So what I like to do is I like to take a nice little sprig of cilantro, like so, and I use the stems and everything, okay? And I like to tilt that to the side. So I like to put that right on top of my taco. All right, it does wonderful for flavor. Something like that, heat up. And then also too, let's check on those pickled onions. Now, how can you tell when your pickled onions are done? When you go get your pickled onions and you see that liquid getting nice and pink, like so, that's how you know, because that color from the onion skin is pink, is kind of like a reddish. That's when you know you're getting really close to that that onion being pickled. Okay, so that's why that's another indication of that I like to know that my onions are really nice and pickled. Okay, you can let them sit there for even longer and just get even more pickled, and they're perfect for tacos. Okay, while that's getting hot, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my plate because we're gonna start plating up in a second. Also, when I'm having tacos or anything like that, I have these my plates here. I love these plates. I found these plates. Usually, in certain neighborhoods, I don't know if you guys do it, but I get it from my mom. Anytime we're rolling around and you see things on the side of the road, like, oh, there's people just throwing things out. I have the habit. I have a bad habit, and don't blame me. Blame my mom. She did it to me. Where it used to be embarrassing, but now I find myself doing it now too. Where I find things on the side of the street and then maybe plates or things like that. And I go and I grab them. And I found these plates here and they're perfect. They're a nice plates and I'm gonna use them. And I use them and I love them. So please don't judge me. All right, so I'm gonna let these get nice and hot. All right, don't grab them with your hands. Grab yourself a fork or a spatula, a metal spatula, and to get these up, okay? But I'm gonna let these cook off a little bit. Then we're gonna go plate up. Let's get that clam up because, as you guys know, if you've been to my class before, I am let's go. I love it. Yes, Gail. Zero waste. Zero waste. What's the saying? One man's treasure is another man's treasure. They made that for me. Maybe I should patent that. All right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and move that around. Let's see if I have enough space for my other one. I think I do. All right. Well, also I could do is to make sure that I just let that sit in there first. All right. Now, while that's cooking off, make sure we have everything we need. So we have our pickled onions. Oh yeah. Sorry, you guys can see. Pickled onions, ready to go. We have our crema, ready to go. We have our fillings, beautiful fillings, ready to go. If you want a little color in there as well too, if you don't like to do the whole cilantro thing, like I'm gonna do, then I would suggest just go ahead and chop some cilantro up. Okay, just go ahead and chop some cilantro up and just throw it in there and mix it in. And that green, you guys know when you're cooking something, you add a little green in there, it does wonders. Okay, all right. So go ahead, move that around. Okie dokie. So let's move that out the way. Because I am ready to plate up, you guys. So, me personally, yes, let's go. Okay, so I discovered TikTok. I wasn't really a fan of it before, and so I started finding all these different things about TikTok. Where you take the seeds and you place them in a paper towel and with some water and everything, and then let them sprout. And I have a little garden outside. I still haven't figured out everything that's out there, but I want to go down and grow some more stuff out there. So that may be a thing. Let's go. I love this group, guys. You guys, we're here. Okay. Now, for me, what's tacos without black beans, okay, or refried black beans. So I like to take some black beans, throw that on my plate real quick because why not? Okay, and then from there, let's go ahead and get our tortillas. Boom and boom. So we're gonna make sure we get some of the mushrooms. That's why I like cutting, slicing them big, because I can get them and put them down first. And then I can add the rest of the other ingredients in there too as a complement, like so. Get some onions, some bells in there. Look at those onions looking nice and just golden caramelized almost. You know, they're nice and sauteed. I'm a big fan of that. Okay, and then from there, go ahead and let's get some crema on here. Let's get a nice little squeeze, like so. And then finish that off with a little bit of cilantro. Boom, boom. Beautiful, beautiful. You can throw a little avocado on there. If you're a really big fan of avocado, throw some avocado on there. And then let's finish this off with our pickled onions. So a few on there on top. It's really good for presentation as well too, but they're delightful for flavor, okay? It gives it a nice little tartness. And honestly, with this crema, I'm a really big fan of this crema too. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add a little bit to my black beans as well too, because why not? Because nobody can tell me anything, okay? Boom. Okay, and there we have it, you guys, right on time. This is a nice little dish you can make within an hour, okay? You have your portobellos, your chipotle portobello tacos, and we also have our watermelon cucumber mojito. I'm gonna give this a try, okay? Let's see how we go. Yo. Yeah, I am ready for summer. I don't know about you guys, but I am ready for summer. I'm not gonna sit there, and one thing you can know about my class, I'm not gonna make anything and not try it for you guys. I want you guys to know how serious this stuff is, okay? Mm. Mm. The only problem about the food that I make, guys, is that I have a girlfriend, and when I make this food and she loves it, there's a battle. I'm the youngest of 7 kids, and I've been battling for food all my life, so my battle continues. But she's gonna love these. That's why I'm glad to make more, because I can make her own. But I'm glad you guys came. We have a whole 2 new menus next, 2 different dishes next month. I hope to see you guys next month. Tell your friends. We got some surprises for you because summer's almost around the corner. It's gonna be great.